Senator Ted Cruz, how are you, sir?
Mark, I'm doing terrific. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Do you ever cross paths with Donald Trump on the campaign trail? Because if you do, I want you to give him a message from me, would you?
Yeah.
Mark Levin would like you to come back on the show after 2 or 3 months of absence. Would you ask him that for me, please?
I certainly would, but I'll tell you, I'm not going to hold my breath because the reason he's afraid to do your show is the same reason he's afraid to do a debate. It's now been 43 days since the last debate. You know, the Democrats have already had one debate. They're planning another debate. What does it say that Hillary Clinton is more willing to debate, more willing to have her views challenged and to try to earn the support of the voters than Donald Trump? And that's why he doesn't want to come on your show, because you won't kiss his behind. You'll actually ask difficult questions, and Donald doesn't know how to answer them. But I will pass on the request nonetheless.
There's a breaking story at the Associated Press. Somebody in this RNC meeting in Hollywood, Florida, taped it, where Manafort and Trump's inner circle, they're telling the gathered Republican officials, hey, look. Trump is going into phase 2. Phase 1 was he has to say these things. He has to say these things to create a persona. But now we're going to move into phase 2, in a way where, we'll appeal more broadly to the public. Who the hell is Donald Trump?
Well, look, I think it's actually not complicated. Donald is a New York liberal who is pretending to be a conservative to try to fool Republican primary voters. And the amazing thing, Mark, all of us are frustrated with politicians lying to us. I'm actually going to give Trump a little bit of credit here. He's being candid. He's telling us he's lying to us. You look at what his campaign manager says, is that this is just an act. This is just a show. When Donald talks about building a wall, when Donald talks about enforcing immigration laws, when Donald talks about, I guess, anything, that it's all an act and a show. And by the way, that is the very same thing Donald told Ben Carson. Ben Carson publicly said, well, Donald explained to me the things he says on the campaign trail he doesn't believe. And it's the same thing he told the New York Times. When Donald sat down in January with the New York Times, he told them what he says on illegal immigration he doesn't believe and he's not going to do. He's not going to build a wall. He's not going to deport the people here illegally. And so if you're tired of being lied to, you ought to at least listen to it when Donald Trump tells us he's lying to us. And that's why I think the right thing for a voter to do is not listen to campaign rhetoric, but instead look for a record. You want someone who'll stand up to immigration? Ask who led the fight against the Gang of Eight amnesty plan and led the effort to defeat it in Congress. I was leading that effort against amnesty when Donald Trump was funding the Gang of Eight amnesty plan. Records matter more than rhetoric, and that, again, is why Donald is afraid to debate, because he can't defend his record, and he's admitting now that he's even going to change his rhetoric to run as a New York liberal.
And you're heading into 5 states that are mostly Democrat states, and he's on the Today Show this morning. Mr. Producer, let's cut 3 ready. What is it? Cut 2 ready. Senator, I want you to listen to this. Cut 2, go.
North Carolina did something that was very strong, and they're paying a big price, and there's a lot of problems. And I heard one of the best answers I heard was from a commentator yesterday saying, leave it the way it is right now. There have been very few problems. Leave it the way it is. North Carolina, what they're going through with all of the business that's leaving and all of the strife, and that's on both sides. The way it is. There have been very few complaints the way it is. People go, they use the bathroom that they feel is appropriate. There has been so little trouble, and the problem with what happened in North Carolina is the strife and the economic punishment that they're taking.
Is that the test, Senator Cruz, to use the bathroom that you feel is appropriate?
It's an example of just how Looney Tunes things have gotten. Donald Trump is explicitly agreeing with Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. They have the same views on religious liberty. They have the same views on protecting our kids. Listen, it is basic common sense that grown adult men, strangers, should not be alone in a bathroom with little girls. I am the father of 2 young daughters. I don't want my girls in a bathroom with any adult man that they don't know. And That's not even conservative versus liberal or Republican versus Democrat. That's common sense. And this is Donald giving in. What he said there is conventional wisdom among Manhattan liberals. It is the political correctness that we have seen the last 7 years. And Donald told us, again, talking about admitting that he's lying to us, he told us he could be the most politically correct person in the world. Well, I'll tell you, after he did this, came out for letting adult men be in the bathrooms with little girls, we put up on our website a new hat that we're selling. The website is tedcruz.org, but the new hat is in honor of Donald. We have Make PC Great Again, because this is PC idiocy, and we need a return to common sense. We need someone who actually says what he believes and isn't putting on an act, which is what Donald is telling us he's doing.
Well, he said something else in this interview that a lot of people have missed. Mr. Producer, let's play cut 5. Go.
Do you believe in raising taxes on the wealthy?
I do, including myself. I do.
Now, Senator Cruz, it's the problem that we don't have enough taxes, and I don't know what they mean by the wealthy, and that'll mean, usually means the middle class or a good chunk of it. So now we know where he stands on bathrooms, and raising taxes on the wealthy, quote unquote, doesn't that go against his own proposed tax plan?
Of course it does, but Donald has no idea what's in his tax plan. He hired some staffer to write a tax plan to pretend to be conservative. It's not a very well thought out tax plan. He doesn't know the details. Donald is a big government liberal. Remember, Donald Trump supported President Obama's stimulus. He supported the Wall Street bailout. He has proposed expanding Obamacare to make it socialized medicine, like Bernie Sanders, government in charge of your health care. And so it should be no surprise that Donald is now saying he wants to raise taxes. He's not going to stand for religious liberty. In one of the last debates that he did, he told Hugh Hewitt that on the Supreme Court that he would compromise and negotiate with Harry Reid and Chuck Schumer on the Supreme Court. On the Second Amendment, he supported Bill Clinton's ban on some of the most popular weapons in America. On immigration, he's told the New York Times he's not going to do what he said. Donald is telling, and by the way, he also just came out today for changing the pro-life plank of the Republican platform and abandoning our commitment to life. Now, that's not surprising for someone who for much of his life supported partial birth abortion and even today supports taxpayer funding for Planned Parenthood. These are the views of a big government New York liberal. And if you're someone, listen, Mark, you and I are both frustrated out of our minds with politicians who lie to us.
I was frustrated with politicians who lie to us before Donald Trump was, I can tell you that.
Well, you know what? They weren't lying to him. I mean, when he was funding Harry Reid and Nancy Pelosi and Andrew Cuomo and Chuck Schumer and Hillary Clinton, he knew what they supported. He supported open border Democrats for 40 years. He supported Democrats who have been radical leftists. If you don't like Obamacare, Donald Trump funded Nancy Pelosi and Harry Reid taking over the Congress. And by the way, that wasn't just a cost of doing business. The incumbents were the Republicans. He funded the leftist Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, toppling the Republicans, and that's why we have Obamacare, because Donald Trump wrote the checks to fund it. And so if you're tired of being lied to, it doesn't make any sense to support the guy who is blatantly lying to you and laughing about it. He is making fun of us right now, the American people. He thinks we're gullible, and he thinks if he yells and screams and curses and uses language that insults everybody, that somehow people will think he's really a conservative.
I've got 30 seconds, real fast. I apologize. The National Enquirer, Senator, you're familiar with that. That's one of the big papers that's come out and endorsed Donald Trump, accuses your father meeting with Lee Harvey Oswald. Can you deny that, my friend?
I can deny it. It is nutty, and this is Trump's henchmen pushing it, crazy lies. And I'll tell you what, if Donald Trump and his henchmen want to accuse my dad of killing JFK, I'll also admit now that my dad is Elvis, and he knows where Jimmy Hoffa is buried.
Senator Cruz.